So you guys have been asking about what the situation was directly after our eBay account was suspended and what we put into place to not completely go broke, right? Not completely stop selling online in general, not get stuck with a bunch of stuff. So that's what I'm going to be covering today. So what we essentially did was we immediately went ahead and moved all of our listings, or made sure all of our listings were actively updated into Vendoo. And the problem with that was we were transferring listings from eBay into Vendoo initially, right? So that hurt us a little bit because it's not like we started with Vendoo and then, right? So the initial batch of listings were in eBay, and at one point we had connected Vendoo, and we started to move those listings into Vendoo and then onto other platforms. In other words, eBay was the master, right? So we'd always, actually even after the fact, even after we had Vendoo, we were always making the listings in eBay first, and then they'd end up in Vendoo, and then, right? So that caused a bit of an issue for us because once eBay shut down the account, they just marked everything to unsold. So the first thing we did was actually went ahead and pulled the report out of eBay, the true sales report out of eBay, and cross-reference that to what was actually in Vendoo and what was showing sold or unsold in Vendoo. Because if you guys don't know, if you guys get an account suspended, what essentially happens is they just shut everything down and they move all your listings into unsold. And that's complicated because not all your unsold listings are necessarily unsold. You might have marked those unsold at a different time for whatever various reasons, right? And it's not that it's a disorganization thing, it's just it happens over time, right? So that's the first thing we did. Then what we did was we made sure that all the links were correct, and we added everything to Vendoo, Poshmark, and Mercari. Now we had some stuff on those platforms, but not a whole lot. But what I started noticing was happening was, even though we had this list that we were physically we were cross-listing, cross-checking based on what was in Vendoo from the original eBay account, right? So that's why we had this Excel file that we essentially downloaded, right? It was still somewhat inaccurate just because of the way that everything got exported and how we quickly exported everything out of eBay once the account was suspended, because I was scared that eBay was actually going to delete the listings, which would have been a travesty because then I wouldn't have any pictures, right? So without the pictures, you have to redo all the work. So at least that's a positive thing, that's how that took place. So what we ended up doing was we ended up going box by box, right? So we use storage boxes. We use an alphanumeric for the most part. I mean, the stuff you see behind me, that's different. This is location. So let me take a step back. Let me tell you how our inventory system works. Basically, we have things like here. These are like one-offs maybe that we got, right? So that's like a specific storage location just for those kinds of items, right? Those are hair curlers and hair straightening irons, right? So those are probably going to be a one-time buy, not because they don't do well, it's just because I can only get so many of certain things at certain times. So those are just there, and they're skewed a certain way, right? Those are HB000 whatever. So I think that was health and beauty, whatever. So that's just kind of what we want with that. Behind me is different. That goes off inventory location, and it's kind of stored like a true like sneaker store, like the Van sneakers. Then we have bins, right? So we have different bins all over the place, and they're just bins full of stuff, right? So that's for stuff that doesn't easily fit into like one of those long storage boxes that you're used to seeing that everybody uses. For our clothing, we're predominantly using those long storage boxes that you see everybody else use, and we use the alphanumeric SKU system. So what we did was we concentrated on certain areas. So for example, we go to this health and beauty area here, and actually physically check to make sure the inventory was actually there. And that was our final confirmation of list. So that enabled us to have a fully clean list of products to work off of, because the last thing you want to do now is start selling stuff on these other platforms and not being able to fulfill those actual products. So that's the approach we took. We just didn't want to make mistakes just because we were in haste, we were in a rush, we're trying to get it done. So essentially, if this happens to you, this is always a strategy, right? You want to get over to eBay as quickly as possible. Pull the file of your active listings, your unsold listings. Make sure you physically have everything with the locations, right? Then you want to go into like a software like Vendoo, and even if the account's suspended, you could still pull all that data out of eBay. But I wouldn't chance it. I would do that as quickly as possible, because at any time eBay could be like, nah, we're just going to delete everything. I've heard people say that that's what happens to them. Fortunately, that's not what happened to us. So we were actually able to pull that out. So what does that do for you? Essentially, now you're able to start with at least the assets that you had. So you have the visuals and all the copy and all that stuff, right? All the words that you had in the listings. And you just have to start relisting, right? So Vendoo's easy, but it's not automatic, right? Like, and I wouldn't trust any kind of bulk listing tool anyway at that point. It is a bulk listing tool, but not really, right? So that's essentially what we've been spending our time doing now. Is we initially did a little bit of stuff that we uploaded. We knew for sure we had our quantity listings. I know I have plenty of. So there's certain items that I have. I sell multi quantities. I buy them wholesale, and I know I have plenty of them. So that's not a problem, right? If those quantities are a little off, it's fine. And then we started at box A, and I think right now we're up to box E, so we're not quite there yet. And we did certain things like the shoes behind me, and the health and beauty, things like that, right? That we know it's easy to physically check. The issue we have now is with our actual website. So some of you guys are saying, hey, do you have a Shopify site or your own website? We do have our own website, but the way that was operating before wasn't through Vendoo. It was another software I was using to pull the inventory out of eBay. And the reason why I was using that specific software was because it categorized it automatically for me. From my experience, or from my understanding, Vendoo doesn't do that. My plan now moving forward is to actually use the inventory from Vendoo, my clean inventory, and figure out a process to get that onto our Shopify. If you guys, just because it just makes more sense now. I actually don't need that other software because I might actually change the format of the website. If anyone out there has actually experience with Shopify and the proper way to do this, the cleanest possible way to do this, please do reach out. Comment down below and let me know, and I'll be happy to talk to you. I'll be happy to pay you for your assistance to try to get that sort of sorted out. So that's essentially a general idea of what you should be doing when your account, if ever your account actually gets suspended. I'm not an expert at suspensions. It just happened to us, and this is how we've handled it. I'm not one to just take it when things happen, right? So it's just how we processed it, how we got through it, and I know it's working because now the sales are starting to pick back up. I feel a little silly, to be honest, because we weren't utilizing platforms like Poshmark and Depop. I won't even talk about Mercari much because it just doesn't do well for us, but Poshmark and Depop do. And I feel silly that we weren't doing this earlier because I think we left a lot of money on the table. But these are all lessons learned, and this is what this process is. In addition to this, what we've been doing to move some inventory is those quantity listings that we have a lot of stuff, right? So I've actually started to offer stuff up on Facebook Marketplace as wholesale lots, right? So I'm not liquidating by any means, right? That's not the goal here. But if I have a lot of inventory of something where I know I can get more of, let's say in this instance it's actually men's dress shirts, right? I can get truckloads of this stuff. It's not a problem. And it's just, they were always like steady sellers for us. So that's why we just kept getting them, right? And I never had to relist the multi-quantity listings. So I started offering them on Marketplace at a discount for quantities. So essentially I'm becoming a wholesaler, and it's starting to work, guys. Like, I'm not doing bad. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to do about $1,000 a day from people coming to our warehouse and buying bulk as resellers. If any of you guys are local to New Jersey, reach out. Hey, maybe we can make a deal, right? Like I said, we're not liquidating. It's just we're looking. If I have stuff that's multi-quantity, I'm just trying to move it. And initially the idea was just let's move. It was like a death pile at that point, right? This became a massive death pile, right? Like instantly. Imagine that. So I was just trying to get rid of some of that inventory, but now I just reordered actually, and a lot of that's probably going to go to Marketplace because it's pretty good. Like, so I'm right now looking for some other items I could potentially do that with. I'm kind of surprised. My goal there is to eventually maybe make like a little WhatsApp group or something and just message all these wholesalers, right, every day. Hey, this is what I have, but that's something for the future. So, I find that pretty cool because like a new business model's opened up that I wasn't even thinking of. So that's kind of something to keep in mind when bad things like this happen. There's always opportunity to be had, and if you could either roll up and in a ball and go cry in a corner, or you could do something about it. But I find that as pretty cool benefit. I wasn't expecting that at all, and I'm sure we'll talk about in the future how that specific kind of business progresses. Regarding the actual suspension, a lot of you guys have been asking about the suspension. I will have an update video about the suspension. There have been some new developments that I just don't want to talk about publicly right now, and I apologize for that. I know I want you guys to think I'm trying to hold back on you, right? I'm not. I want to make sure I'm giving you accurate information, right? I'm not scared to talk about it by any means. I'm not scared that something I'll say is going to piss off eBay and mess up what we're talking about right now. I've actually been told it won't, but it gives you an idea what's going on, right? But regardless, I want to make sure that when I tell you something, it's factual, and let's say we get our account back, it's true. I don't want to say, hey, I think we're getting our account back, and then in 2 weeks I'm like, no, we're not getting our account back, and you're going to call me a liar, right? So anyway, guys, I hope that covers what we did. If you want to know more, or I could physically show you guys some of the stuff that we've done, in case somebody out there actually has suspended accounts and needs some help to get back up and running. Maybe this content can help you. I don't know. I'm trying to help and also just document this process at the same time. But yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions, just drop them down in the comments.